Welcome today. I'm happy that I can introduce our work done in Working Group 1, Restore Cost Action. I am part of Working Group 1. Chair was Martin Brown, and Blair Favula from Kosovo was also one of the active members of Working Group 1. And Eduardo gave already a short introduction about what was going on in the different working group. And Working Group 1 was specifically focused on definition concepts. So just to give the base for all the working group following. Working Group 1 was the concept of cost action was to have one working group for 1 year, and the working groups followed one each other. Just to give you a short insight about myself, my background, I'm an architectural and urbanity researcher at Urbanity. Urbanity is an interdisciplinary research institute dealing with very different research topics. Yes, and this was therefore it was also quite interesting for me to join this cost action, because also cost actions are always very much interdisciplinary. You meet a lot of different people and discuss different topics from very different point of views. So you have seen this picture already. What do we think when we speak about regenerative? Regenerative just briefly describes to do more good than just to reduce the impact. So where does this come from, this idea? The first time when regenerative sustainability, when this term was used, it was by a landscape architect, John Dillman Lyle, in 1994. And he first started to introduce that if we want a sustainable development, we don't need a linear system, but we need more or less like a living system. And what's very important, not to have just an ecological way, but we need harmony between an ecological and a social way. And only if you have this balance, you also can have a really ecological and regenerative development. So this also Eduardo introduced already. We in each working group we produce these small booklets. Some are more books than booklets because there was quite a lot of content. And in this booklet we tried to collect all our ideas and thoughts which we have developed during our workshops. The main facts were, of course, or the main starting points were for us to find a clear definition. What does it mean? Sustainability, restorative, and regenerative. And we come to the conclusion that for us, sustainability is more or less just to limit the impact. Yeah, restorative means restoring social and ecological systems, and regenerative is not only to restore but also enable the system itself to restore and maintain. So which main restore triggers did we identify? We identified these four main topics, or where we think that essential influence can be, or essential aspects can be brought forward. These are nature, place, economy, and education. I think nature, that's something that is very strong in the focus in this Restore event. Nature means that also that buildings have to be part of nature. Place, that we need to see the cultural, geographical, and historical importance of place. For example, economy, we need the social just transition to a regenerative economy. And education, it's of course very important to create awareness about climate and ecological emergencies. where out of these triggers we developed our Restore visions concerning nature, that we need much more a place-based regenerative design approach, which means all the buildings, as I said before, need to be in harmony with nature. We need to use resources from nature, and also buildings or the building environment should be part of the repairing the surrounding ecosystem. Place is one of the main aspects in a restorative or regenerative design approach, because it's more important not to have so much global solutions, but to have really local solutions that respect, for example, microclimate, but also cultural or historical environmental aspects. Economy, I think before it was made quite clear, it's with not to have a linear economy, but to have a circular economy or a regenerative economy. So growth is not based on a linear input-output model, but on a circular economy that is also has the focus to restore the ecosystem. And again, education, as I said before, also to have a new approach in education, not the teaching aspect, but the aspect of empowerment and participation, and not the aspect of top-down, but the more bottom-up aspect would be necessary. So just to summarize these 4 triggers or 4 visions, what does it mean for the building stock? This means restorative and regenerative building that restore or help to repair the ecosystem. We need integrated lively heritage. We need health, well-being, and equity on the scale of the built environment. And we need the circular economy approach and more regenerative economy or sharing economy, for example. So what does it mean? We also tried to find case studies where we can see already what would this mean in practice, for example, and I would like to show you a few of them. The first is the visitor center in the UK, Curtin Valley, where also Martin Brown from the Restore Action was actively involved. And this Curtin Valley, they tried to minimize the fossil fuel energy, so they used a lot of local resources, for example, wood, timber, straw balls. They used sheep wool insulation, lime plaster, and also most of the wood was sourced from the surrounding park. So also from the transport aspect, they tried really to use local resources, to use renewable resources, and so quite a nice concept of place-based design, I would say. The second is an example from Austria, from Vienna, from my hometown. Magdas is a social business, and it's one of the Austrian leading NPOs, and they started already a few years ago with Magdas Hotel, where refugees are working, and now they also made this new Magdas Kitchen, where the main idea is to reuse material, to reuse for example, lamps from a torn down office building, to use ceiling panels as wall decoration, but also, for example, to reuse or to use the waste heat from the kitchen and the cooling system to heat office and staff rooms, for example. So it's quite a very complex idea of not use the resources that are already were used. And a third, or another example is Kosovo TV, where it's this idea of recycling was even more part of the concept there, or was really the main idea. And they used not only recycled and reused material from this was an industrial building, and they also used, for example, bricks from buildings that were demolished during the war, or they used railway sleepers. And from this example, I would like to show you a short video for this. So I hope you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, this was Kosovo TV. And just to show a few more examples, this is, for example, a modern seaweed house in Sweden where they reinvented, I would say, traditional material to use seaweed. And I think it's also a good example, not only from the ecological side, but also, for example, from the educational side, to bring forward also like historical traditional knowledge. Or this example from bioclimatic dwellings in Tenerife, where they also use the place, or they use the solar radiation, for example, for heating, because they have this volcanic Tosca stone from the solar energy during the day. They take this energy and can heat the building during the night, for example. Or the last example I wanted to show you is this home for homeless children, where they baked a mud house, and during the baking process, they even used these buildings as an oven to produce new mud bricks. It's just to show a little bit this approach, not just to produce a building, but also to have like several use of this process. So yeah, thank you very much. So if you have any question, please feel free. And I hope I just could give you a brief insight about what we have discussed in Working Group 1.
Thank you very much, Edelbro. We still have time for questions. So if you have questions, please ask them in the chat. So there are some comments like very convincing from Bertrand Montfort. Thank you very much.
I have one question in the meantime. I see that we have talking about these axes like education, place, nature that are very important to make regenerative and restorative projects. I see in the cases that you have been showing for us that the notion of making a project that is really related to the place, to the local reality, and how the project is really based on this understanding of the ecological system, but also the social system, is very important to make a regenerative project. And I would like to hear a little bit about this topic from you, how people are making to relate to place in regenerative projects.
Yeah, I think, as you said, for me, regenerative means to work with what is already existing. And for me, regenerative is also very much to focus not on new building, but to focus on already existing building, to focus on what nature has already produced, what is, for example, what microclimatic aspects you have, what cultural, what local aspects you have. Yeah, and I think if we see, for example, traditional architecture, they didn't have a lot of technology, but they also were able to live in buildings, to heat their buildings. Yeah, and I think there is also a lot of knowledge we could regenerate in this case.
Great, thank you.